534 BC in Greece, long before the first movie was created in 1895 AD. That's 2,429 years where people's main entertainment was theater. Theater continues to thrive today with millions of dedicated thespians and audience members alike. It is a group effort always, with not only the actors, but stage crew, tech, house, designers, and stylists all coming together to make it happen. There is also another large player which might surprise you: science. Theater would not be possible without it. There is science in every part of theater. Every muscle we move, every song we sing, everything we glue, every audience we encounter, and every bit of makeup we apply. Let's take a look.
Why?
Because, crap, I don't remember.
Acting is the most recognized part of theater. Actors are the people up on stage bringing the stories to life. But in order to do this, actors must memorize their lines, cues, and actions. You may think that you know how people memorize things. They repeat it a bunch and then they remember it, right? Well, yes and no. There's a lot of processes that are involved in remembering. Our memory is not a physical thing. Instead, it is an act that involves many parts of the body. However, memory is a process that mostly is processed in the hippocampus, with your memories being stored in your cerebral cortex. Your brain does not remember every single thing that has ever happened to you, as I'm sure you're well aware. Instead, your brain selects things that it thinks are important to remember. It is an actor's job to convince our brains that our lines are important to remember. There are 3 steps in remembering things. Encoding is the first step, which is simply getting the information into our brains. Some things are encoded through automatic processing, which means that they are encoded without us consciously trying. The other type of processing is effortful processing, which we actually think about and try to do. This is a type of processing that actors use. In addition to these types of processing, you also use 3 types of encoding. The first one is called elaborative encoding, where you relate the information to information that you already have in your brain by putting the information into a meaningful context. This is the type of encoding that we usually use when learning new things. The second type of encoding is visual encoding, where we think of the information with images. The last type is organizational encoding, where we organize the information in ways that make sense to us. Actors may differ in the ways that they use to encode information. The next step is storing, which is exactly what it sounds like. There are 3 types of memories. The first type of memory is sensory memory, which we only have for a few seconds or less. It holds information from our immediate senses. The next type is short-term memory, which holds information longer than the sensory memory, but is still less than a minute. Repeating the information over and over again can, however, reset this timer. This is the type of memory that we might use to remember a phone number that we only have to dial once, or relay a message that we don't have to remember after it's relayed. The last is long-term memory, which is what actors aspire to have their lines in. The first is long-term memory, which has 2 categories: explicit memory, which includes facts and is processed in the hippocampus. Actors require this type of memory to learn their lines. The second type of memory is implicit memory, which includes skills and is processed in other areas of the brain. Actors require this type of memory in order to remember skills and how to do physical things that are required in a performance. Retrieval is when an actor brings forth the lines that they have memorized for use.
What are you doing?
Working on expressing my character's emotions on stage.
Imagine a play where lines were said, but no emotions were shown. Everybody just stood in one place in a neutral stance with a neutral expression on their face, and no inflection or emotional indicators in their voice. Would you want to watch that? I sure wouldn't. Expressing emotions on stage is extremely important in conveying what a character is feeling and helping the audience even understand what's going on. Reading emotions is an evolutionary trait biologically innate. Therefore, unless impacted by outside forces, we are all able to read them. This means that actors need to be especially conscious of what their expressions are conveying to the audience. Imagine someone saying, "I'd love to have you come over for dinner," with a big smile on their face and a cheery tone, as opposed to somebody saying the same thing with a look of irritation, a flat voice, and arms crossed. Emotions can completely change the interpretation of a scene. At one point, scientists thought that there were only 6 basic emotions. However, new studies have shown that there are far more categories. With so many emotions, how is an actor supposed to know which ones to use? There are many guides online and in print about how to express emotions on stage. Happiness, pull your cheeks up and out. Sadness, raise eyebrows from the inner sides. Cheeks may be brought up, and so on. However, studies have shown that making a certain facial expression can actually make you feel that emotion in a phenomenon called facial feedback hypothesis. Therefore, the best bet is to bring out the expression from inside of you. Think about a memory of that emotion or whatever you need to. After you've initially put on that emotion, it's likely that you will actually be able to recall the emotion, making for a realistic display of emotion. Actors should make sure that all expression isn't focused on their face, however. Studies show that people more accurately perceive emotion with body language than they do with facial expression alone, and that people trust tone of voice over the actual words coming out of somebody's mouth.
It's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Stop it.
Singing is a huge component of musical theater. It brings joy to other people as well as to the singer. It unites us. But have you ever stopped to think about why we can sing, why we feel happy when and after we sing, or how singers and actors take care of their voice? Some of the parts of your body that interact to create singing include the voice box or the larynx, abdominal and back muscles, the rib cage, lungs, the oral cavity, and what we call the vocal cords. However, the vocal cords are not like cords at all. Matter of fact, they more closely resemble their medical namesake, the vocal folds. The vocal cords are membranes that snap open and close to create sound as air pressure builds against them. The muscles of the larynx bring the vocal cords together, and they stay closed until enough air pressure or breath accumulates and pushes past the vocal cords. However, the vocal cords only produce a buzzing sound by themselves. Resonators are required to speak and sing. These resonators include the tongue, palate, oral cavity, nasal cavity, sinus cavity, chest cavity, pharynx, and higher and lower notes are determined by how high up the resonators you are primarily using are. The power source behind the singing is your diaphragm, rib muscles, back muscles, and chest muscles. They are the support system. The size and shape of your vocal cords and resonating cavities determine the quality of your voice. In order to be successful as a singer, however, the voice must be taken care of to prevent problems and strain that harms the quality and health of a singer's voice. Taking care of your voice includes staying hydrated, maintaining a healthy lifestyle, including staying away from smoking, avoiding overuse and straining of your voice, warming up before a performance, avoiding dust, avoiding sleeping in rooms with cold, dry air, preventing sickness and colds, getting sufficient sleep, and definitely using proper singing techniques. If your voice or has other vocal damage, they should never attempt to sing anyway or cover up the problem to get them through just this one performance. A singer with a damaged voice should rest their voice, stay hydrated, and if there is a more serious problem, consult a good trainer to help correct the issue. Before a performance, singers must take care to avoid irritants such as shouting, dairy, cold foods, caffeine, sugar, and greasy foods, because these may impact the sound of their voice and or make it hard for them to sing. Why does singing make us feel good and bring people together? It is not just that you like singing and you like the people around you. Singing is actually able to both calm and energize you because of the hormones that it releases. Singing releases endorphins, a chemical that is like morphine but produced inside of the body. Endorphins help to block the cells responsible for pain and certain other emotions. This is why you feel so good afterward. As for the bonding part, singing also releases oxytocin, which is also known as the love drug. And this hormone is responsible for bonding that occurs in groups of singers. This is extremely important for choirs and the cast of musicals. Imagine a dancer on stage, spinning, leaping. How do they do it? We don't often think about it, but dancing involves a great deal of physics. Balance is a huge part of dance. In order to stay balanced, your center of gravity, which is the point that gravity seems to act on the body as a whole, must be directly over the point that you contact with the ground. When you move one part of your body, it moves the center of gravity that way. In order to keep balance, a dancer must shift a part of their body in the opposite direction. If the center of gravity is not above the contact point, a dancer will lose their balance. When turning, centrifugal forces, which are outward forces acting on a body moving around a center, may require a dancer to move their center of balance while turning. Corrections also must be made quickly while turning to prevent falling if the dancer begins to wobble. Not all poses are able to be held while turning. During a grand jeté, gravity is the only force acting on a dancer. It acts on the vertical motion of the dancer. Once a dancer loses contact with the ground, their trajectory will not change. When preparing for a pirouette, a dancer must adjust the position of their feet. When there is a greater distance between the dancer's feet, the torque, which is defined on Wikipedia as the tendency of force to rotate an object about an axis, will increase. But the dancer's center of gravity is farther from where it needs to be during the turn. This means that more adjustment will be required when actually doing the pirouette. It has been shown that in pirouettes, it's best to have 2/3 of your weight on your front foot and 1/3 on the back foot. When rising into retire, where a dancer's leg is risen and knee bent so that the toe is by the supporting knee, the torque ceases. To extend the duration of a torque, a dancer must keep pushing off the floor as they rise and begin their turn. When spinning, a dancer can pull their arms or legs to increase turn rate. However, the floor's friction will make the turn rate appear constant. When the turn is stopped, a dancer lowers their foot to the ground to increase friction and extends their arms to slow rotational velocity, allowing them to come to a pose stop. These are only some of the examples of physics in dance, as physics affects every move that a dancer does.
Hey, can I carry that for you?
Are you sure it's pretty heavy?
Don't worry about me. I've got strong muscles.
Oh, I got a strong brain.
Well, we can carry it together.
Okay.
Stage crew and tech has a huge variety, from the designers and builders to the lights and audio technician to the stage crew that makes a smooth transition between scenes possible. Let's talk about stage crew. Moving and carrying things is a very big and important job that stage crew has. They are responsible for setting up and switching scenes, and they help the show move along quickly and smoothly. Moving things is enabled by your musculoskeletal system and your nervous system working together. Your muscles turn energy into motion and make it possible for you to not only move, but also express ideas. There are 3 types of muscles: skeletal muscles, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. Skeletal muscles are the muscles that we use to move parts of our body, like our limbs. You can see and feel skeletal muscles. They generally contract voluntarily and are what we are usually referring to when we are talking about somebody's physical strength. The skeletal muscles are necessary for stage crew to be able to move anything, and this brain is necessary for the muscles to work. Even a very simple movement is a complex motor task. When you pick up anything, your brain has to figure out which muscles to use, how to steer your hand to pick it up, and calculate how much force you need to pick it up. The primary motor cortex is one of the most important brain areas for motor function. Its role is to generate neural impulses to control the execution of movement. Signals from the primary motor cortex control muscles on the opposite side of the body. Every part of the body is represented in the primary motor cortex, and body parts that need to be controlled precisely, such as your fingers, require more space. This map is called the motor homonucleus. The other regions of the cortex involved in motor control are called the secondary motor cortices and includes the posterior parietal cortex, the premotor cortex, and the supplementary motor area, or SMA. The posterior parietal cortex transforms visual images into motor commands. It sends this information to the premotor cortex and the supplementary motor area. The premotor cortex is involved in the sensory guidance of movement. The supplementary motor cortex is involved in planning complex movements and coordinating two-handed movements. Both of these send information to both the primary motor cortex and brainstem motor regions. The corticospinal tract is composed of millions of fibers and is the main pathway for movement in humans. These fibers go through the brainstem, cross over to the opposite side of the body, continue down the spinal cord, and terminate at the appropriate levels. And that is only the beginning. The brain and the muscles are extremely important in movement, and if we're missing either, we would not be able to move in the slightest. So after a show, thank not only the stage crew, but also their brain and muscles.
I failed my physics test.
How do you do that when you do tech?
There aren't any physics in tech.
Yeah, I think someone needs to study a little more.
When you think of tech and theater, what do you think of? The lights, the rigging systems, even scissors? Physics, all of it. In theater, there is something called a rigging system. With rigging systems, you can raise or lower thousands of pounds of lighting, speakers, cables, scenery, and curtains on battens or metal pipes with a pulley system. Pulleys are simple machines which allow you to multiply the amount of weight that you are able to lift. As cool and useful as our muscles are, no one can lift thousands of pounds, so pulleys are vital to theater. The most common pulley that is used for rigging systems is the counterweight system, where there is a weight usually made of steel on one end. Another simple machine that we often use is scissors. Scissors are very important in theater, whether for cutting cloth, fake flowers, or other decorations, or spike tape. Scissors are actually a class 1 lever, which is a simple machine where the force you apply is on one side of the fulcrum as the force that you produce. This is the same class that seesaws are in. Levers multiply force to lift an object on the other side. You are able to lift an object that is even heavier than the force you are applying, as long as the force you are applying is on the end and what you are lifting is close to the fulcrum. Scissors may not seem like they are really lifting anything, but if you think about them like two levers sharing a fulcrum, they actually lift the other side of the blade in the opposite direction as the direction you are applying force to. When the blades close together, you are able to cut a lot of things, as in the case with most other levers. It works best when the object is closer to the fulcrum. Lighting is extremely important in theater because, well, how are you supposed to see anything? There's also a lot of physics that go into it. There are two types of lenses, converging and diverging lenses. In converging lenses, light is directed towards a single point. In divergent lenses, light spreads out. The light hits the lens and refracts through the focal point, or the point at which light converges. Focal length is the distance between a lens and its focal point. Converging lenses have a positive focal length, which means that the focal point is on the opposite side of the lens as the light source. Diverging lenses have a negative focal length, which means that the focal point is on the same side as the light source. Changing the distance between the light source and the lens changes the focal length as well, resulting in focusing the light. Ellipsoidal lights are often the lights used to light the stage from far away. They light a small area but are very bright. Ellipsoidal lenses may also hold gobos, which are screens used in front of a light in order to project a shape. When light comes out of a lens, it spreads out upside down and sideways, so the gobo must be flipped accordingly. Light rays spread out when they exit a lens, so the closer a light is to a wall, the smaller the gobo must be.
So much fun in chemistry today, Leah.
That's great, Sam. I love chemistry, and that's one of the reasons I love tech.
Chemicals are in everything, and chemistry pervades our everyday lives. This is very true of tech theater. In tech theater, we work with many different substances to help the show go on. I'm going to be focusing on two of them, paint and adhesives. Paints are very important in theater and are most notably used to paint props, sets, and even things like shoes, jewelry, and accessories. Without paint, we would just have to deal with things being the color they were originally, which is not practical, especially for sets and things that are repurposed. Paint consists of pigments for color, binder or resins, which is a polymer that holds a pigment in place, Extenders, which are large pigment particles that improve adhesion, strengthen the film, and save binders, solvent, or thinner, which is water or organic solvent added to reduce the paint's viscosity, and additives, which are used to modify the paint's properties or the dry film. Additives may include dispersants to separate and stabilize particles of the pigment, silicones which improve resistance to weather, thixotropic agents which give paint a jelly-like consistency which breaks down to a liquid when stirred or when a paintbrush is dipped into it, dryers which shorten the time it takes for the paint to dry, anti-settling agents which prevent the settling of paints, bactericide which preserves water-based paints in the can, and fungicides and algicides to protect the exterior paint films against mold, algae, and lichen. When the paint dries, a film develops on it which causes it to adhere to the surface it is applied on. In many cases, particularly when time is of the essence or an object is atypical, spray paint is ideal. Spray paint is stored in a pressurized container and released as an aerosol spray, which is a colloid. It works basically like other paints, but is usually faster and gives a more evenly coated surface. Adhesives are another huge part of theater, and extremely important, whether for creating stage props or costume props, decorating anything, attaching microphones, or creating spikes. Some of the most commonly used adhesives in theater include hot glue, wood glue, super glue, and spike tape, which is not an adhesive in and of itself, but has adhesive on it. Adhesives have been used since the Stone Age, when early men made them using natural things from the world around them. These adhesives are fittingly called natural adhesives. The adhesives that we usually use in theater are made from chemicals and called synthetic resins. For an adhesive to work properly, it must have cohesive forces and adhesive forces. Cohesive forces means that it sticks to itself, while adhesive means that it sticks to other things. If you try to stick two things together and they come apart, but with the adhesive still on both of them, then the substance's cohesive forces were not strong enough because it could not stick to itself. However, if something has too much cohesive, but not enough adhesive forces, then it is also bad for sticking things together. Take a block of iron. It sticks together extremely well, but is too preoccupied with sticking to itself to stick to anything else. You can't stick anything together using iron. Nobody knows exactly how adhesives work, but one of the main factors in things sticking to each other is absorption. When you spread an adhesive over something, it wets the surface, and lots of weak electrostatic forces between the molecules of the adhesive and the surface hold them together. There is no actual chemical bond in absorption, but there is in chemisorption. In chemisorption, the adhesive and the object that it's sticking to merge together to form a very strong chemical bond. A good example of this would be glue and certain plastics. Absorption and chemisorption are both chemical connections, but adhesive can also make physical connections. For example, if adhesive is applied to something with a porous texture, it can seep into those holes and grip through them. This is called the mechanical theory of adhesives. Another theory is called the diffusion theory and states that adhesives and the object it is sticking to diffuse at the surface with molecules where there are joins swapping over and mingling together. Some glues are dissolved in solvents to keep them stable and non-sticky in the tube. These solvents then evaporate into the air once outside of the tube. This is how plastic modeling glue works. Some glues, such as epoxy resins, come in two different tubes and have to be mixed together before working.
My favorite color is red.
I prefer blue.
Long fascinated scientists and artists alike. With so many colors and so many questions ranging from how do we see color to what color looks best with which other colors, it's easy to see why. Color is used in tech constantly. If it's anything that you can see, color is relevant to it. No one wants to see a production that is entirely one color or has an unpleasant combination of colors, and thespians don't want to work in one. It is vital to use color to our advantage when designing a production. Let's start with basic color theory. The basic tool used for combining colors is the color wheel, which was first designed by Sir Isaac Newton in 1666. There are three primary colors, as you probably know: red, blue, and yellow. You cannot create these colors by mixing any other colors together. When mixing these, you can create three secondary colors: purple, orange, and green. A third set with 6 colors is achieved by mixing primary and secondary colors together. These are called tertiary colors. Colors can not only be divided by how they're created, but are also divided on how they look. You can divide the color wheel into warm colors and cool colors. Warm colors advance space and are very energetic. They include reds, oranges, yellows, and lighter greens. Cool colors are calm and soothing. They include blues, purples, and dark greens. White, black, and gray are neutral shades. You are able to create these colors in different tints, shades, and tones. No, they are not all the same thing. Tints are created by adding white to a pure hue. Shades are achieved by adding black to a pure hue. And tones are achieved by adding gray to a pure hue. You are also able to have colors with varying levels of saturation, which is how vibrant they appear to be, and value, which is a scale of an object's brightness on a scale of black to white. More vibrant colors have more saturation, and colors closer to black have a higher value. Certain combinations of colors are considered more aesthetically pleasing than others. These color combinations are referred to as color harmonies or color chords. The first type of color chord is the complementary color scheme, which is the one that one usually thinks of when they think about color chords. Complementary colors are colors that are directly across from each other. They're a good use to make something stand out, but must be managed so that they are not too jarring to the audience. Analogous colors are colors that are directly next to each other. They give off a serene feel, but you must make sure that there is enough contrast between them. The best way to go is to choose one color to dominate the design, a second to support, and a third one for an accent. Triadic colors are evenly spaced around the color wheel. They tend to be vibrant, and it is best for one color to dominate with the other two as accents. Split complementary colors are kind of like complementary color schemes, except for you use the two colors adjacent to the basic complement instead of the actual complement. It has the same contrast as complementary colors, but with less tension. This scheme is great for beginners as it is hard to mess up. Tetradic or rectangle colors are arranged in two complementary pairs. It offers plenty of room for variation, but one color should be dominant. Square colors are like tetradic colors, but with all four corners spaced evenly around the circle. In both tetradic and square color schemes, attention should be paid to the balance of warm and cool colors. What we have been talking about is mostly applied to subtractive colors, which is when stage crew mixes paint, for example. When you mix paint, the colors get darker until reaching black. There's also additive color, which applies when dealing with light, whether from stage lighting, your computer screen, or all the time. Additive colors is when you add more colors and they keep getting lighter until reaching white, which is all of the colors mixed together. But what is color, you ask? How do we see colors and what does additive color have to do with it? Well, I'll tell you. Color is not something that is really a physical part of an object. You are not able to touch, smell, taste, or hear color. It is only a visual perception. This observation was put forth by Isaac Newton. See, when light hits an object, it absorbs some of the light and reflects the rest. This is what your eyes perceive to be color. So if you are in a room that is completely dark, the objects in the room do not have color that you are simply unable to see at the moment. They do not have a color at all because there is no light for them to reflect. Therefore, the only reason that the stage has color with the house lights off is because of the light technicians. And the white light that is often shined is not an absence of other colors, but rather all of them being shined together. The objects on stage only reflect some of this light, which is why they appear the way they do. This illustrates the concept of additive color, which is present in every perception of color we have. In additive color, every time you mix color together, it gets lighter until eventually getting to white. This is the color theory that is used by light technicians in theater. The additive primary colors are red, blue, and green, corresponding with the color perceiving cones in your eyes, instead of red, blue, and yellow as is used in subtractive colors, which are only used in mixing pigments. Because of this, the mixtures of these colors also look different. Viewed by some as frivolous, unnecessary, or even downright oppressive. Others view makeup as a beautiful tool for self-expression and liberating to the people who love and wear it. In theater, makeup is viewed as an important tool to transform ordinary people into any role they're playing and a vital tool to make an actor's features visible across the theater. It is generally applied to all actors, including men, in some way or another, and is an extremely necessary element of theater. And most people can see why. What a lot of people don't think about is how closely entwined makeup is with physiology and how much reasoning goes into it. How do we know where to highlight and where to contour? There are many bones in the face. The nasal bones are the two bones sitting beside each other that form the bridge of the nose. Often, makeup artists will contour the sides and highlight on the bridge to slim the nose and make it more defined, or to correct crooked noses. Theater makeup artists may do that, but specific characters and scenes may call for contouring and highlighting to make noses look wider or broken, for example. The temple, which is sitting beside the eyes, has the temporal and sphenoid bones underneath it. This area is often shaded when contouring and highlighted. The zygomatic bones make up our cheeks and is the most often highlighted and contoured area, with highlighting on top making our cheeks look wider and contouring below giving depth and shape. The upper jaw is made up of two maxilla bones, while the lower jaw is made up of the mandible. Shading under the jawbone is often done to define the jawline. The eye socket is made up of 7 bones. Highlighting is often done on the supraorbital arch or brow bone. The muscles that makeup artists work with are striated muscles, the same muscles that allow movement. Muscles in the face are used to convey emotions among other things. While it is very important for an actor to learn how to express emotions on stage themselves, makeup artists are also able to manipulate facial muscles with makeup to convey emotions. This is useful if there's a character that just always looks angry, for example. Muscles, along with skin, also contribute to looking older. We can manipulate these muscles by way of age to make an actor look older or younger. There is also a science behind facial proportions, and makeup artists are able to use makeup to give the illusion that certain features are different than they actually are. For example, if eyes are close set, we can apply highlight to inner corners of the eyes to make them look farther apart. Or if someone has a long face or a long chin, we can highlight their cheekbones or shade under their jaw. Often in theater, makeup artists will actually try to create some of the characteristics, which are usually corrected with beauty makeup, in order to give the character quirky characteristics. Highlighting and contouring should only be attempted for a production if you have practiced a lot or have a lot of experience, and if you are completely confident that you do fantastic contours and highlights. Because if you do not understand what you're doing, you can end up making an actor's face look dirty. Good makeup is still able to be achieved without contouring or highlighting. In stage makeup specifically, a normal face often does things, a makeup artist often does things that they hopefully wouldn't be doing for a normal face. In stage makeup, defining features is one of the primary uses for stage makeup. This means harsh lines and hardly blended contours, dark eyebrows, much more blush and eyeshadow than normal if used, and often eyeliner and mascara, even on men. This does not mean go crazy with colors in order to be seen. Measures must be taken to protect against the lights as well. Because the lights can wash out makeup, foundation is often applied slightly darker than the person's actual skin tone, and makeup artists usually try to stick around the colors of red, fuchsia, and orange, as other colors are generally washed out. Using primers and setting the makeup is very important, as heat from the lights and sweat can melt makeup.
Whoa! Didn't you know makeup had chemicals in it?
Yeah, I know.
Did anyone say that there is chemicals in makeup? They're right. However, the chemicals in cosmetics are either completely harmless or not present in high enough concentrations to harm you anyway, except for in extremely rare cases. Let's look at the makeup of makeup. Most makeup products contain a few different types of ingredients. The first is water. Water forms the basis of most makeups, acting as a solvent. The water in cosmetics must be distilled or otherwise pure. Emulsifiers are also added to keep water and oil from separating by eliminating surface tension. This results in a well-mixed, homogeneous product. Preservatives are an important component that is usually added. They are added to extend the shelf life of products and prevent growth of bacteria and fungi. It is important for preservatives to be water-soluble as microorganisms grow there. Thickeners are added to give products thicker consistency and come in 4 classes. Lipid thickeners are solid at room temperature but may be liquefied in order to add them to products. They work by contributing to the formulas their natural thickness. Natural thickeners come from nature and absorb water, causing them to swell. Mineral thickeners are also natural and absorb water and oil, but give a different end result. Synthetic thickeners are the final group and often used in creams and lotions. Emollients are used to protect the skin by preventing water loss. Pigments are used to give color and can be split into 2 groups. The first is organic, which are carbon molecules. Lakes and toners are the most common types of organic pigment. Lakes are made by combining dye with an insoluble substance. This makes the dye insoluble and is ideal for waterproof makeup. Toners are pigments which haven't been combined with any other substances. The second group is inorganic and are mostly metal oxides. They tend to be somewhat duller than organic pigments, but are more resistant to heat and light, giving a color that lasts longer. This is ideal for stage makeup. You already know what glimmer and shine are and why they are added. Mica and bismuth oxychloride are what is usually used for this effect. Mica is crushed into powder and added to the formula. The particles refract light, which is what gives the product a shimmery look. Bismuth oxychloride is used to give a pearly silver effect. It is found naturally in the rare mineral bismuthite, but is usually produced synthetically. Particle size also matters. Small particles give more coverage but are less lustrous, while larger particles have more luster but also have less coverage. Fragrances are another thing that is added for obvious reasons. Even unscented products often have masking fragrances added to cover up unpleasant fragrances, and one listing of fragrance may include many different fragrances. It is not required for manufacturers to list every fragrance as they are considered a trade secret. There are over 3,000 chemicals that are used to create fragrances and products. Now let's take a look at a specific cosmetic that is used extensively in theater: foundation. Foundation is created in 4 phases which are then mixed together. The first phase is the powder phase, which is exactly how it sounds. Titanium dioxide is a natural mineral often used as pigment because it is very bright, and it also helps make the foundation opaque. In addition, titanium dioxide helps protect the skin from the sun, and therefore it is used in all sunscreens. It is, however, identified as a cancer-causing agent when the dust is inhaled. Talc, or magnesium silicate, is a soft mineral used in foundation as an absorbent, as a way to improve the feel, and as an anti-caking agent. Talc is considered safe when used in small quantities and as directed. Mica is used for shimmering effects. Metal stearates are used because of their hydrophobic qualities in order to prevent the absorption of moisture. The aqueous phase is mostly water with wetting or dispersing agents to improve blending. Lecithin is a naturally occurring lipid that is found in egg yolk. It is used as an emulsifier. Sulfosuccinate is used as a cleansing agent and may be a skin and eye irritant. Ethoxylated sorbitan is used as an emulsifier, solubilizer, wetting agent, and viscosity modifier. It is either found naturally in fruits and berries or is prepared in factories by the high pressurization of sugar. Bentonite is often used as an absorbent. The polyoil phase includes ingredients which include products improving the feel of the foundation, decrease the drying rate, and improve spreadability. Glycerin is used in order to attract water to the skin and make it feel smoother. PEGs are often used as thickeners, softeners, and moisture carriers. The last phase is the oil phase. It consists of both solids and liquids that are used to improve spreadability and emulsification, control viscosity, and disperse pigment. They include fatty acids such as stearic acid and oleic acid, waxes such as carnauba, ozokyrite, and sericin, emulsifiers and thickening agents such as propylenyl glycol and sorbitan, antioxidants such as tocopherols and BHT, preservatives such as parabens and urea, and fragrances. And to think that's just foundation. The formulation of makeup is a fascinating science that allows the existence of a fascinating art.
Hello, ma'am. How are
Oh, whoa, I didn't even know you worked here with how shabbily you're dressed. What kind of establishment is this?
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm excited to see the show.
Whether we like it or not, we are judged by our appearance, and how others perceive us doesn't just stop at their judgment. It can also affect others' decisions about things affecting you, or in this case, your theater. That's why it is important to always put your best foot forward. In theater, our best foot forward is house. I would argue that house is the face of a theater. They are the first people you see when you walk in. They handle your tickets, serve food, or maintain the snack bar, and tell you where the bathroom is. It is important that we maintain a professional and formal appearance because we are the first impression for a lot of people. In one study, it was shown that in a study where participants were asked to look at flyers with imaginary candidates' pictures on them and tell who they would vote for, they were more likely to vote for the man with the more favorable appearance, regardless of party stance on the flyer. Another study was asked participants to rate headshots of women by how able-looking they were. The results show that characteristics determine how able-looking the women were included eyes more rounded at the top than the bottom, short hair that was parted or combed back with a slight widow's peak, a broad or round face, and a smile. Then these researchers hired a Hollywood-style makeup artist and photographer to give two women the desired characteristics. They showed the photo of the woman with her desirable characteristics alongside a photo of her opponent with the undesirable characteristics. Then they asked a different group, showing them the same women, but with their appearances reversed. The desirable photo got more votes both times. Psychologists have also studied the impressions that people get with specific facial variants in daily life. There are four main types of facial overgeneralization. The first is anomalous face overgeneralization and is the most extensively studied. It deals with how people of varying levels of attractiveness and varying weight, age, and levels of masculinity and femininity are viewed and perceived. Studies have shown that people who have more typically attractive faces are viewed as being more successful, powerful, intelligent, successful, and outgoing, while the opposite is true for those that have less typically attractive faces. People who looked overweight in the face received the negative perceptions, while those who looked to be of average weight did not. Older faces were also perceived worse than younger faces. Studies have shown that women with more feminine faces and men with more masculine faces were also perceived better. The second type of overgeneralization is baby face overgeneralization. Studies have shown that adults with baby faces are perceived to have more childlike characteristics. Because of this, they are passed up for leadership positions and challenging tasks, but more likely to be given jobs requiring congeniality. Baby-faced adults are also more likely to be released when they are charged with intentional crimes, but also more likely to be found guilty when it comes to charges involving negligence. Research has been mixed on if these impressions are correct. A study observed that baby-faced perceptions are only more accurate in older women. Other studies have found baby-faced young men to be more negative, assertive, quarrelsome, hostile, and more represented in samples of young men at risk to be delinquent, more likely to be repeat offenders, achieved higher academic achievement, and more likely to earn military awards, contrasting with popular perceptions of baby-faced people. The third type of overgeneralization is emotional overgeneralization. People often make perceptions about people based on their current emotional state. People display happier faces are perceived as having higher affiliation and being more dominant. People with angry faces are perceived to have lower affiliation and more dominance, while people who appear sad or scared are perceived as having moderate affiliation and low dominance. This can lead to a temporal extension effect, where people who express momentary emotion are perceived to be that way all of the time. What this means for theater is that it is necessary for house to appear friendly and happy even if they are not, because that is how they will be perceived, and as and by affiliation the theater. The last type of overgeneralization is familiar face generalization, where people with faces that people thought looked more like other faces were treated accordingly. For example, people preferred others with faces that looked like the face of someone who was just friendly to them than the face of someone who was unfriendly. Other studies have shown that when people appear more attractive, people view them to be of a higher social class. And when people believe themselves to be attractive, they actually believe themselves to be of a higher social class as well, and vice versa. However, when people view themselves to be more attractive, they supported inequality more, and the opposite was true for those who viewed themselves as unattractive. Research has also shown that people who were viewed as more attractive earned more and advanced more quickly in their careers. Is this to say that you need to do everything you can to emulate everything everyone finds attractive? Definitely not, but even if you aren't the ideal, you are still able to put your best foot forward as a house member and wear professional clothes and a smile.
Hi, ma'am. How are you?
How rude. Do you even care about the audience at all? I'm not paying for this attitude of yours. Hi, ma'am. How are you?
I'm fantastic. So glad to see so many friendly house members here.
Communication is very important in house, and it's not only the words you say, but how you say it and the body language that you are using. Let's talk about body language. Body language developed because it was adaptive. A long time ago, before we had language, that was primarily what we communicated with, and us reacting so visibly to things has stuck around. Some of the body language we use is conscious, but a lot of it is unconscious. Body language is often relied on over speaking, and we can often tell a lot more through it. Your body language can either signal that you're approachable or unapproachable. House members should strive to appear approachable. It is extremely important that house members pay attention to what their body language is conveying. Voice is extremely important as well. People usually pay more attention to the tone of your voice than what you are saying if there are any incongruencies with them. Because of this, it is important that house members strive for their voice to sound clear, warm, and upbeat. You may have come into this thinking, well, what does science have to do with theater? Before this project, I asked myself the same thing. I didn't think I'd find this much information. I have found that science is very relevant to theater and that biology, psychology, chemistry, and physics all have a place in theater. I hope that you are all able to see that now.
Theater is full of science.
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 Kayla Edwards. Iselia Ibarra.
Madison Edgerton.
Gretchen Lopez.
Karen Thomas.
Quinn Beiser. 1, 2, 3. All right.
I wish I was an apple, hanging on a tree, and every time we are bash, take a bite of me. I wish I had a nickel, I wish I had a dog, yes, I wish I had